Hey everyone, Brian here. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to play the newest champion, Taliyah, in the jungle. Taliyah is a control mage, one with devastating CC and kiting potential. While it's quite clear that Riot never intended Taliyah to be a jungler with the fact that even if you take Smite they still recommend a Doran's Ring, her kit just happens to make her a near perfect candidate for the role. With her potent CC, mobility, early skirmishing, great pick potential, and her quick clearing speeds that ramp up heavily as the game progresses, it's quite easy to see why Taliyah has the potential to be a great jungler. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. She does have some negatives that I'll also be going over, so you can be careful and minimize errors to have the biggest chance of success when playing this champion. As you know, Taliyah has a rather low win rate, large in part I think due to her difficulty as a champion and how when she messes up she is severely punished. But first let's start off with the basics, the runes and masteries. The runes are simple, AP Quints, attack speed reds, 6 flat CDR blues, and 3 flat AP blues with armor yellows. You can replace the 6 flat CDR blues with either per level CDR blues or 7 tier 2 flat CDR blues. You can also run flat or per level MR blues if you don't have anything else. For masteries, we're either going to be running 6-18-6, taking Thunderlords as the keystone for a more damage oriented route, or 6-6-18 taking Strength of the Ages as the keystone for a more tanky option. While I think the resolve tree is a bit easier, I think the damage route has a much better potential for carrying. However, I encourage anyone to experiment with runes and masteries to perhaps find something that might suit your playstyle better. Building Taliyah, however, can be very situational. Most of your item set will change from game to game. However, there are a few items that will stay core no matter what. Taliyah's core items are Runic Echoes, since no other jungle item is even remotely good on her, Rile Eyes for the perma-slow kiting and chasing on threaded volley, and Void Staff due to the fragmented nature of her damage, which means that MR is very good against her, and even against opponents who aren't stacking MR, you will need a Void Staff eventually. Now, her situational items include, but are not limited to, Rabadon's Deathcap, Zhonya's Hourglass, Abyssal Scepter, Morellonomicon, Leandra's Torment, Guardian's Angel, and Banshee's Veil. I'm not going to go over all of her potential builds for time reasons, but you should be itemizing for cooldown reduction in every game since all of her abilities, except Threaded Volley, her Q, have rather long cooldowns, so you should be getting 1 or 2 of the CDR items listed. If you want a general build to test her out, here's one that should serve you well in most games. Make changes where you see fit as you get more used to the champion and develop your own playstyle. Now on to clearing the jungle. Taliyah's first clear is probably her weakest point in the game. Her Q is on a high cooldown and the base damage is relatively low, even compared to rank 2 in the ability. Not to mention, she also doesn't have all of her abilities available for maximum damage. When you suspect you won't get a leash, start at your red buff for a guaranteed healthy clear. Otherwise, always start at your bottom side buff with the help of your bottom lane, unless you wish to path differently. The reason you want to start at a buff instead of a normal camp like Gromp or Krugs is twofold. 1. The smite buffs these camps give aren't terribly efficient for Taliyah. She won't get hit often enough for Gromp, and the health return on red is much better than the stun on Krugs. 2nd, she wants to avoid invaders as much as possible, and the best way to avoid cheese is to simply start at a buff and let the enemy invader waste their time. When you clear, as with any ranged jungler, make sure you're always kiting back to avoid as much damage as possible. Try playing her in a few custom or bot games to get a feel for the clear and make sure you're ready to take her into a real game. When you're done with your initial clear, either take a point in W for an early gank, or take a second point in Q to clear more camps. This will depend on the state of the game, so make sure you're on the lookout for overextending lanes, or potential counter ganks. Which leads us nicely into ganking. First we're going to start with the non-ultimate ganks. When you gank, you typically want to lead with an Unraveled Earth into Seismic Shrub combo. This not only puts the enemy into a world of pain with the Unraveled Earth trigger damage, but puts the enemy into a horrible position. After you complete the combo, follow up with Threaded Volley and auto attacks. If you landed everything, it should have been a very successful gank. But the enemy is not always in range for an Unraveled Earth. In that case, just use the Seismic Shrub to get the enemy closer to your team, and just follow up with as much damage as possible. Seismic Shrub can also be incredibly useful in counter ganks to save your teammates. In this example, I shoved the Amumu and Annie away from my Jace teammate and pick up the kill, single-handedly turning around the enemy's gank. Now on to Taliyah's bread and butter, her incredibly potent ganks with her ultimate Weaver Wall, allowing her not only to circumvent wards, but also block off potential escape routes. When compared to other junglers, her ultimate is basically a mixture of Jarvan ult and Pantheon ult, which guarantees a flash blown or a kill when used properly. and is especially potent against the mobile champions. When using the ult, try to be creative where you come from. The ultimate really lets you approach ganks from extremely unique angles. The ultimate is also incredibly good at catching fleeing opponents. Try to keep your eyes open for opportunities at all times. Just try not to block off your teammates. Now it's time for the final portion of the guide, skirmishing and teamfighting. Before you teamfight, you want to try to make a pick with your Seismic Shrub. When the battle becomes intense, you want to skirt around the edges, getting off as many threaded volleys as you can, while you zone the enemy champions off your backline with Seismic Shrub and Unraveled Earth. Use your ultimate to clean up fights. Just be careful not to screw over your own teammates. In this skirmish, I picked off the enemy Alawi while zoning off Zyra with my threaded volley. We finished it all up with a good Weaver wall to pick off the low health Ashe and block off the Nunu from helping his Darius, resulting in a convincing victory. In this final clip, I started teamfight by catching the enemy Volibear with my Unraveled Earth and Seismic Shrub combo, forcing him to commit to a teamfight. After my team collapses on the rest of the enemy team, I move back and forth, finding more ground to use my threaded volley to continue my DPS, while throwing Unraveled Earth and Seismic Shrubs where I can. The initial pick led to a rather easy and convincing teamfight victory. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching my guide. This is my first ever formal guide and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like, it helps me out a ton. If you didn't, please tell me why in the comments. I strive to improve with every video. If you want to see more content like this in the future, please subscribe. Also, check out my other content on the channel. I'm doing stuff all the time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.